So today I wanted to take a little bit of time and discuss neutrinos with y'all because it's something that's really interesting and it's really pushing forward science and our exploration of space. But the first thing I have to point out is that it's not actually spelled right on here. It's supposed to be Neutrinos. But um, besides that, the first thing I want to talk about is what they are. And what they are puffs of energy that's given off during nuclear reactions, such as nuclear reactions that's happening in our own sun and other stars, and even nuclear reactions on Earth and power plants and stuff like that. And they're very essential to our understanding of the universe and just how we can, make rockets and stuff that can go further and last longer and things like that. And the major mystery behind them, they're very, very difficult to detect because they're so small. They basically have no mass at all. Many people, when they were first discovered, believed they could travel faster than the speed of light because they were so small, and you can't see them without them interacting with other particles. And for them to interact with other particles is very, very rare. But when it happens, they give off flashes of light, and that's the only way we can see them. Next, I want to talk about the origins of them, where they come from, and when they were discovered. They were discovered in 1959 by two researchers, but previous to this, they were still known that they existed. They just didn't know what they were or how they were created or anything like that. But in 1959, two researchers that were working on nuclear reactions inside power plants and studying them finally discovered that during every nuclear reaction, there was a little bit of energy that was left over, and they didn't know what was happening to it. And finally, one day they started noticing little puffs of energy leaving the reaction, and it was keeping stability within it so that the energy wouldn't build up and overload the entire thing and just create explosions in the end. Their journey begins at the heart of a star or a nuclear reaction, and really they technically do travel faster than light, because light, when it comes out of the center of the sun, it has to fight through every particle. But because their mass is so small and they react so little with other particles, that they can just go straight through everything going on, and they reach Earth way before light ever reaches. It takes millions of years for light to reach our Earth, but neutrinos can reach it in a mere 8 seconds, 20 seconds. And it's a well-known theory now that they actually helped establish our universe and keep the balance when everything was first created. They're actually thought to have existed before atoms themselves even existed. And when matter was being created, neutrinos were supposed to be the thing that kept there being more matter than antimatter. And if they weren't there, then more antimatter would have been created and just made the whole universe collapse in on itself, because everything would have been even. But because of their tiny mass and their inability to react with other particles, they just kept the balance of matter. Next, I'd like to talk about how we detect them and how difficult it really is to detect them. They're basically invisible because of they're so small, and they hardly react to any other substance on Earth. And there has to be very specific labs that are created, like one that's been created in Antarctica in the past few years. They created a giant telescope of sorts underground, because one of the materials that reacts the best to is ice. So they made a big giant square that's a couple 100 acres, huge, and they have to look through that and wait till they see the little bursts of light to hopefully be able to track these neutrinos and see where they go and what they do after that, because they're still a mystery to us today, and we don't really know what they do after they leave the sun. But again, they are just puffs of energy that you can't even capture one. They can pass through any material. They pass straight through the Earth, straight through us every second, every day. And is constant. Nobody really knows that much about them besides that they exist. It's a wild deal. Next, I would like to talk about the importance of them and how they've helped us to exist. You know, without them, there wouldn't be anything. Is what a lot of theories point to in the end, and what most evidence points to is that they are the basic building blocks of the entire world, the entire universe, supposedly, and they also are really our only hope of improving the future and hopefully even saving our society, because eventually, you know, it may be billions of years, but eventually something is going to happen with the sun, and it is going to become so large that it will become a supernova, or it's going to explode. But with neutrinos, we can maybe make rockets and stuff like that to explore deeper space and expand our culture into different planets and different, maybe even galaxies. They might even be the best solution to helping our environment, because everything nowadays is so energy efficient. You don't want to burn coal, natural gases, stuff like that. And they could even make an impact there on how they can just keep us from destroying our atmosphere and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, I think they are one of the most important things that we need to discover more about, and that really impact our society more than we can ever imagine.